What's up everyone? Welcome or welcome back to the Marketing Nomad YouTube channel. I am the Marketing Nomad. Alrighty, let's get into today's topic and I want to talk about routines. Alright, first off, I have been implementing a particular routine for my business and my personal life for the last 6 weeks, and I have to tell you, it's been an absolute game changer. I think that my relationship with routines has been a little bit dramatic right since the beginning of my life. I feel like for the first half of the life that I've lived up until now, I've always resisted routines, structure. I don't know, I think there was always like a negative connotation to discipline. You know, it just didn't align necessarily with me. And of course, now I'm into my 30s and I have evolved in my thinking. I am starting to build a healthier relationship with routines. And it started out really small. It started out actually when I became an entrepreneur. I started to figure out, okay, well, I need to have at least small routines with respect to my business. And so from small routines, like literally 2 tasks, and making sure that's a proper routine and I'm keeping up with it, I think that it has over time, and this is the course of 6 years of trying to create a healthier routine or trying to create a healthier relationship with routine, it's finally come to a point where I'm quite happy with my relationship when it comes to routines. I don't resist it. In fact, I welcome it. And I think one of the reasons why I welcome routines today, and I didn't used to, especially while growing up, is because I think that I'm more leaning towards working on calming my nervous system. I think that I am being extremely intentional about it at this point. I feel like I've been in survival mode for quite a very long time in my life, like nearly 2/3 of the life that I've lived up until now was in survival mode. And that has kind of taken a toll on my nervous system. I also feel like entrepreneurship as well does take a toll on your nervous system. I don't know why not a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners talk about this, but I feel it does. At least it has for me. So one of the things that I'm being more conscious about, and I have been at least for the past year or year and a half, is how to facilitate a calmer environment for my nervous system, how to step out of survival mode and step into thriving mode, how to support my nervous system, how to calm it down. There have been certain things that I've been doing and that has been working out for me, and I'll kind of get to it in another video. But in this video specifically, I've kind of understood that routines actually help my nervous system to calm down. It provides some sort of an anchor that my nervous system didn't necessarily think to need at one point. All right, and so the whole concept of routines for me personally, like becoming more serious about it and aligning with it, came from the thought process of giving some kind of stability for my nervous system, especially when there's so much of volatility in my life. And nothing against the volatility with respect to my business. In fact, part of me kind of thrives on that. Part of me, that's the entrepreneurial spirit. Like we kind of move towards that energy. I don't say we like it, but there's a part of us that connects so deeply with it. All right, so I didn't want to eliminate that aspect of my business as much as I want things to maybe come to a point of stability with respect to my business. And I feel like I've been working a lot, very, very hard towards different aspects of my business and to create that stability, and it has. There are still some parts of my business that are still a little bit volatile. I'm still in the process of trying to at least create some kind of predictability in that system. But I mean, entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship. There's a reason why it is so. There is that unpredictability that you have to factor in, right? As much as you want to make the model predictable, there are some things that you will not be able to. That's why the journey is such, right? So that was one extreme that I was operating on with respect to my business, where things were so volatile, and then I was slowly working to create at least some kind of predictability with respect to some systems or some aspects of my business. But I also did understand, and I do understand, that there will always be parts of my business that are going to be a little bit volatile. They are going to fluctuate. It is going to be swinging with that pendulum, and I am going to continue experiencing, these extreme highs and lows with respect to the journey. And for me, one of the things that I have been actively working on for the past 2 years is creating a balance. Like, the centered energy is what I'm looking for. No extreme of one kind, just coming back to my center, coming back to my balance. And I've been doing this a lot intentionally for my personal life, and with respect to my spiritual growth and personal growth, I wanted to implement that for my business as well. So if one extreme is like these volatile highs and lows that you experience with your business, I thought, okay, well, if I want to come back to the center, then I need to anchor myself. There needs to be something that's holding me in place, that is the contrast of the volatility that I am experiencing with respect to my business. And that's when it kind of was a very natural thought that came to my mind, and it came as routines. And like I said, I've resisted this idea for a long time with respect to my own personal life, just because of how I'd been through my just the thought process growing up and stuff like that. So I started to build a healthier relationship with routine. In the past 1.5 years, it's been a lot more intensely focused on creating routines for my business. And it has really, really changed my life. 6 years ago, I started with this, but I wasn't that serious about it, or I think it would fluctuate. My desire for routines would fluctuate every now and then. But in the past year and a half, I have to say that it has been a lot of my focus going into making sure that there are routines in my life, so that I can anchor to that, especially when there are these unpredictable phases for my business. And I've found that routines have made a significant difference in my life. Now, it's been a while of me implementing, right? And implementing it seriously, I guess I would say, and being very strict about making sure that I'm showing up for these routines. And one of the biggest things that I realized with respect to routines is that I am now on the outside. There's something anchoring me, and whatever volatility experiences are there with respect to my business, I'm no longer getting sucked into that energy. I'm no longer in the eye of the storm. I'm actually outside of it, because there's something anchoring me, and that's my routines. And because of that, what I've realized is I'm now on the outside looking at the storm, or looking at the unpredictability, looking at the volatility. And my mind is a lot more grounded, it's a lot more stable, it's a lot more clear with respect to whatever I am going through with respect to that situation. Previously, I would get so involved in that energy that it would be so confusing, overwhelming for me. It would take me some time to ground myself. That by itself was a process, how to ground myself, how to center myself. But now I'm kind of skipping through those steps, and instead I'm already anchored, so I'm already grounded. There's already something that my nervous system is kind of aligning with or anchoring to, so that I don't get sucked into that volatility. And I'm able to handle these phases of the business a lot better. And it's incredible how routines have brought about that change within me. So I highly recommend it. I felt like sharing this with you because I have been noticing how much of a difference it makes to my life. When you're going through that routine every single day, it doesn't really, you don't really understand how it's helping you or what's happening. You just show up, and sometimes it can feel like you're not doing anything significant by just showing up for the routine, and that's how I felt. But I also knew that I needed to do this in order to anchor my nervous system to something that was predictable, something that was stable. My nervous system really, really needed that to step into a more thriving mode. So I kept going. I was like, okay, you know what? I don't know how the results are going to be, what's going to happen, but I do know that my nervous system needs this. So we're gonna focus on the routines. We're gonna make sure that we are doing it. We're showing up. But in moments of lows during my business or moments of those volatile periods, I found that those routines carried me. They actually carried me. And it's in those moments that I realized how powerful my routines were. I was sad, or I was angry, or I was upset, or I was plagued with a problem and I didn't really figure out a solution. My mind was foggy. Whatever it was, whatever I was experiencing with respect to those volatile aspects of my business, there was still something anchoring me, and that was the routines. And my nervous system was able to ground itself, was able to calm down a lot faster than if I were to just not have these routines and be in the middle of the storm. And so I wanted to share that with you because this is so interesting. Like, while I was showing up for those routines, it didn't really matter to me. Like, it just felt like, okay, what am I doing over here? Like, is this really making a difference? But those routines show up for you when things are unstable. Those routines ground you when things are unstable. So the power of those routines only comes into play, and the hard work that you've put in to show up for those routines only is visible when you are faced with unpredictability, or when you are faced with tougher phases or this volatility with respect to even your business or your personal life or whatever it is. I found that the contrast that it provides with respect to the unpredictable things that we go through in life, it really grounds you. It really provides that anchor that you need, especially so that you can think clearly, so that you take a step outside of the unpredictable chaos or whatever is going on, and you're able to see the situation for what it is rather than getting sucked into that energy, because now you're kind of like anchored outside of it. So I highly recommend routines. It has made such a big difference. Like, even though when I was showing up every day for those routines, didn't necessarily feel like I was doing anything great, or it was actually tough sometimes as well, like, is this even working out? Does this even make sense that I'm doing this? But at the back of my mind, I knew that, okay, you know what? My nervous system really needs predictability. Up until now, it's like most of my life, like 2/3 of my life, it's been faced with so much of unpredictability. I really need to create at least some kind of predictability for my nervous system. So I was very sure that I needed this, but I didn't necessarily know how I would see the results of it or how it would transmute. Honestly, my focus was just, I need to calm my nervous system down. I need to provide the stability it needs. And I thought that it would take like possibly years or something for me to be able to see the difference. But no, it honestly takes, like, for me, it took 3 months, and that's it. I was able to see visible results, especially when I was going through like a lower period of my business. This kept me anchored. My routines kept me anchored. And so I just wanted to share the power of routines. Like I said, when you're in it, like when you're going through the routines and the motions, you don't necessarily think that it's powerful, but you realize that you can anchor to it, especially during your lows, especially during moments of volatility or unpredictability. That is when it saves you. That is when you recognize the power of it. That is when your hard work actually pays off. When you're putting in that hard work, you can't really necessarily understand how it's making a difference, but it does pay off. So I highly recommend it. This is something that I feel very deeply about. Like I said, I resisted routines for a very long time in my life, but it's something that I've been very serious about, especially in the last like 1.5 years. I've been very intentional and very serious about it, and I'm starting to see it pay off a lot. With respect to my nervous system, I feel a lot more stable. I feel a lot more calm. I feel like I'm able to handle unpredictable situations or chaos a lot better than I would maybe 6 years ago. And so I wanted to share that with you, and that's on my mind very heavy this week. So start simple, I guess I would say. Like, I started out with, okay, one task I have to do 5 times a week. That is my routine, that I will do it at this time. It started out that, then I added one more task, then I would remove that, add something else, or I would grow as a person, and then I'd feel like that routine doesn't work out for me, something else works out for me. That's all been part of the process. I've never taken it to be as a routine failed for me. No, I've always taken it as the routine has constantly kept evolving alongside with me, and sometimes I needed space to figure out how to rewire it, and during those moments I would like kind of go out of touch with that routine. But I've never taken those to be failures. I've always taken them to be part of the process of inviting routine back into my life, needing that space away from it to figure out, to understand what needs to go out from it, what needs to come back in, what I want to align with, what I don't want to align with, and then restart the routine with new elements or with old elements, but improved processes, improved systems, so on and so forth. I've never ever taken it to be, I failed at doing this routine. No, I've always taken it as it's part of the process. It's part of the process of the routine evolving. And I feel like when you look at it that way, you don't get disheartened that, you know, there are these phases where you don't necessarily follow the routine that you've set for yourself. But yeah, that can actually kind of demotivate you and like stop you from coming back to the routine. So I feel like this thought process of mine has helped me like get back on track. Like if I find that, okay, you know what, I've been out of touch with this particular routine for quite some time now, it's not like I failed at it. No, why didn't it work out? Okay, let's see, maybe that was too overwhelming for me, that was too much for me to take on. Let's lower it down, let's break it down into smaller steps, or let's remove this and add something else. Or we've changed as a person, like I that's no longer important to me anymore. So what's important to me right now? Shift it, change it, mix it up, rewire, realign, and then start fresh. All right, so that's how I've perceived routines as well. But like I said, in the past 1.5 years, I've been a lot more serious about it, just because I know that my nervous system needs it. And you know, I've been through a lot of unpredictable circumstances for a good chunk of my life, lived up until now. And so I decided to become more serious about routines, because I was like, okay, you know what? My nervous system needs predictability. We've come to a point where you need it. You know, I just knew that my nervous system needed it. So started to be a lot more serious, but it pays off. It really, really does. So I highly recommend it. I hope that this video has given you like a good starting point with respect to mindset, with respect to how you can perceive your routines while you're working through it, because you don't necessarily feel like you're doing anything important or that it's going to pay off. You don't feel it while you're doing it, but it pays off. It actually does pay off in those moments when it becomes your anchor. All right. So I hope that this gives you a different perspective of routines as well, and you also will join me along and, you know, create routines for yourself. Start small. I started very, very small, to be very honest with you. 6 years ago, it was just like one task, and then that grew over time. Today, it's a lot more stable. Today, there's like a basic skeletal system of my day that's built, and I do have certain things within that day that can be shifted around, but there's a proper set routine throughout my day that's there today. But it didn't start out like that. It started out with one task, and then today it's kind of over the course of 6 years of me working hard on this and more intentional about it in the 1.5 years. It's now kind of become a schedule or a routine for the full day, with some parts of it allowing me to mix it up. All right, so this is where I'll leave you for today. I really hope that this video helped you in some way. If it did, please do give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because that tells you every single time I do upload a YouTube video. Take care, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye bye.